Here we are again. So as you can see, I've got this Fraser's bike in the back that I'm assembling at the same time. I'm going to assemble Scott's Shovelhead chopper this time. So Scott came to me years ago. I think I built this frame like 4 years ago. So he just got me to build him a frame that obviously some pretty wild specs, and he was going to assemble a bike out of it. Obviously that never happened, that's why I've got it back. So this is a really stretched frame. He wanted to run like a 12 over front end but not change the rake. He wanted all the lift in the frame. So I think there's like 10 or 11 inches of stretch up in the frame. So it is a really stretched out frame. It's sort of like that American chopper sort of style where it's got a really tall neck. So that sort of style. So yeah, like I said, I built this frame. I've built it around the engine gearbox basically. I've got foot controls that are off like a later model thing that I can just bolt on this, so that's all done. All the guards already mounted, the tank obviously mounted. I've done all the middle engine mount and everything for this. The oil bags mounted and everything. It's got like a soft tail later model oil bag just for something cheap, because rigid oil bags are stupid money and hard to find. So this is just like a normal shovel with a Super E. It's got a Maggie, this one, but so I'm going to be dialing in a Maggie on this, which is going to be fun to mess around with. I haven't done one before. The gearbox has been fully gone through. I had to do that as well. I've already done all the rear brakes and spacers and all that sort of crap for this. And the front end is pretty special actually. It's a wide glide. It's a 12 over wide glide, but it's in super narrow Mullins trees. So that's pretty cool. It's got a super narrow front wheel and all that sort of stuff. So I have just some tall Z-bars with an internal throttle and stuff like that. So it'll be pretty cool. Like I said, a bit different style to what I'm usually playing with. I'm usually playing with stuff like this, like nice original sort of dimension stuff, but this is quite a wild frame, so it'll be interesting to see what this rides like and ends up looking like at the end. I think it'll be pretty cool. He wants like a big custom stainless exhaust and stuff for this, so you'll see me build that. It's just got a open belt drive and stuff, so nothing special that side. I've already done all the internal wiring on this. He was pretty adamant that he didn't want to see any wiring, so it's all internal wiring, so that was nice and annoying. So yeah, I'm just gonna throw all this stuff in the frame and start working out bolts and stuff, and then I'll go get the bolts and bolt it together, and then I'll start doing all the oil lines and all that sort of stuff. Probably do exhaust last, because I'm gonna have to put the Maggie on to make sure the exhaust misses it and stuff like that. So. Alright, let's get involved and start putting this thing together. Just being in the way. Alright. So this is a complete frame that I built from scratch for this, literally this purpose. He gave me a front end, gave me all this stuff, and literally said, I want a frame to suit all this. So this is what I come up with. I'll show you how large it is when I get this engine in here. Oops, probably should have grabbed that. That's that. As you can see, it is huge. Like, look at the gap in here. So that's what he wanted, that's what he got. So this is still 30 degree, like standard rake, like I said, but this is like 11 inches up. So it is enormous. And then yeah, I've got to still make mounts for this. Like I said, I want it like a clip-in job, but so it basically just sits on there like that. He bought this this seat well after I made the frame, otherwise I would have made a seat pan and I got a seat made, but that's alright. It is what it is. So that's basically it. Like I said, I've got a fucking Maggie going on here. So I need to swap all this over and put this mag on, which I think would be pretty cool. And then I'm gonna have to do all the bits and bobs to time it, get it all right, but it should be pretty sweet when it's all done. So I'm gonna go get me a little notepad. I'm gonna work out all these bolts, go buy them, and then we'll come back when I'm actually bolting this thing together. I'll put this mag on. Alright, as you can see by my shitty mess, I've got all the bolts for this thing, bolted engine and gearbox. Well, gearbox transplate's bolted down, but the gearbox is loose because I'm about to do the belt primary, which I'll show you how to set that up. I had to get bolts for Fraser's fucking thing too, so that's why there's so many damn bolts there. Don't worry about Ben's little panhead mess here. He's got a little crusty little panhead action going on there. So yeah, I'm about to set up the primary because like I said, the gearbox is loose, transplate's bolted down. So like I said, a lot of people have these things like that. A lot of people have these things set up, and if these two shafts aren't exactly in line, if they're one like that, the belt will walk. So it'll just run it'll run off the fucking sprocket at the back, or run into the alternator, or whatever. So a good way to check that is get yourself a straight edge, like this straight edge or rule or anything, and you just put it up against the clutch like that, and you look down the top. So I've just got a straight edge across the top of your basket like that, and looking down it, it's in line with the front pulley, so that'll run pretty nice and straight. Like I said, if possibly your gearbox is on a lean or it's not perfectly parallel to the engine, it will start to wander a bit. So you'll just want to leave it there and tweak it a bit. And a good way to tweak it is put your kicker side bolt in and then pivot the gearbox off the bolt like this. But I'm going to try and get away without doing that, so I'm going to tighten up my little gearbox bolts now, and that'll be that. Let's fucking knock this front end on, eh? So this, I'm probably fucking sounding like a broken record. This is like a 12 over. So 30-degree rake, so there's no rake in the frame at all. It's just a fucking big over front end that needs to come forward a little bit. Just like that. So I'm expecting this to actually ride quite nicely because it still has 30 degrees of rake, and sort of the geometry probably hasn't changed too much. So this probably still should ride like it should. So fingers crossed. These are a pretty cool tree too. These are wide glide tubes, but the trees are Mullins super narrow trees. So I actually met these guys in the States when we went to Born Free a couple of years ago, and they cast these trees that are super narrow. Like you had to get a super narrow wheel just to fit inside of these sliders. So super narrow, really cool things. Pretty sure they're super expensive, but they do look good. Pity they're not polished, but nothing else on this bike's polished, so I suppose it doesn't really fucking matter. So there's basically the front end all put together. I'm just gonna go through and button all this up because I really shouldn't, I don't think I'll be taking this off again. So I'm gonna go through, button it all up. Not sure where that's going. Loosen these. So yeah, that's basically it. So that moves nicely. I can lock all this up. And that's basically it. It's quite a large front end really. It'll look pretty sweet with the little Z bars on it. It's gonna have internal throttle cable and stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead, finish this off. Then I'm gonna get to the rear wheel, put the rear guard and all that sort of bullshit on, and then we'll come back and have a look at this thing completely up at ride height and see what it looks like. All right, here it is. I've got this thing all up. I've got the rear wheel on now. I just sat the seat on. I've got a hole here for the rear mount. I just need to do something for the front mount. So seat's on. Let's stand back and have a bit of a look at this thing. You can see the stance of it. So that is kind of the look it's gonna be. So thing's pretty cool. I'm just gonna whack the Maggie on. I'm not gonna time it yet. I'll time it when I go through and do all the ignition, I reckon. I just wanna put the Maggie on so I can start working out the exhaust and working out where all that shit goes. So I'm gonna quickly slap that on. You don't need to watch me do that. And then I will start mocking up the exhaust and working out what I need to do. All right, I wanna get started on this exhaust, but annoyingly, I noticed after I put the engine in the frame that it's had some pretty average repairs on the exhaust studs. So I'm gonna show you a quick little way to fix that. So come in a bit closer, would ya? All right, so the front and rear head have both been tapped to the same size. So this is a 1/2 inch UNC bolt, right? So that screws in there perfectly like that. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take this over to the lathe and we're gonna drill and tap a thread in the end of it. So here's one I prepared earlier. So this is the right thread drill and tapped in the end of it the whole way down, right? So when we screw this in here, we're gonna Loctite it in, and I've left the nut on the top so that we can swing off it and really get this insert stuck in the head. And then when we cut it off with a grinder and file it flat, we're gonna have the insert permanently stuck in the head, and then we're gonna have our bolt hole that's gonna accept the exhaust stud. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that on front and rear, and then we'll start doing the fucking exhaust. All right, so I have me little guys all fixed up here. So that's my little insert you can see there. Here's my little bolt. She goes in nice now. So front and rear, all sorted. So now I can get started with my exhaust. So I got me little laser cut exhaust flanges here. I got my buddy to cut these out. I'm gonna start selling these. I got a web store coming out in the near future, so keep an eye out for that. So I have some nice thick exhaust flanges there, and I'm gonna start getting this exhaust going. I'm just gonna do a quick time lapse of this and just get it done and dusted, because you could watch it on the last video if you want to. But basically it's gonna come out here, and then I'm gonna stick it in this little hole here, because otherwise I'd have to go around the front and like around here like a generator style, and I don't really want to do that because that makes the pipe longer and the rear pipe's going to be short as fuck as it is anyway. So I want to try and get the pipe similar-ish length, so I'm going to shoot that guy through there, up there, and then it's going to come up over the gearbox and then out the back, and then this top one's just going to go straight out the back. So I'll just time lap this, you can watch it. Luckily this doesn't have to be fully polished, this is just a nice rough finish, so here it comes. Righto, so this is the front pipe, pretty well sussed out. I'm super happy with how this came out. Like, look how tight it is down in there. Super tight down in here, like past my controls. You can see just how tight everything is here. Same with the frame, like that only just fit the pipe through it. So super happy with how that's come out. Up in front of the gearbox like this. Not exactly the style that I'm usually into, but I'm really digging this. The top pipe's just gonna come out and go straight on top, the rear pipe, sorry. It's gonna come out and just go straight across like that. So that's probably gonna look pretty sweet. So I can't wait to get this done. But before this, I'm going to Sydney tonight. I'm going there for the weekend to help a buddy for a surprise for his birthday to get his bike done. So when I get back from Sydney, we're gonna finish this off.
Getting good at catching that motherfucker thing in the end. What do you do?
Send me mates around here to knock all your shit off.
Thick. So you can get the shot.
Alright, so I'm back from Sydney. I'm back here in the shed. As you can tell, I overcooked it in Sydney and I made myself sick, so that's great. But I really need to get this done, so I'm going to push through on that. So as you saw before, I've got this front pipe pretty well sorted. Now I'm going to get started on the rear pipe and shoot it just up the top here. So we'll time lapse that again and let's do it. Alright, so that is the exhaust, pretty well nutted out, all sussed out, ready to weld out. I'm pretty happy with how this rear pipe turned out. You know, I've only got 1, 2, 3 welds that I have to worry about there, so that's sweet. The front pipe's got freaking 10 or something, so much harder on the front pipe. So before I weld these things out though, I want to make the rear mounts. So I'm probably going to mount them off the, so this bike's not getting a sissy bar, right? So this isn't going to be normal. It's just going to have a little support up here to support the back of the fender. So when you have your little lady on here, you know, you don't bend it. So I'm going to make them first. They're going to go just down here and they're going to mount somewhere here, just out of some stainless. And then I can mount the rear of the exhaust to it. And then I can completely weld these things out. So I'm just going to go through and do all that. And then we will come back when I'm ready to pull these things off and weld them out, I reckon. Alright, so I have some rear fender supports pretty well dialed in here. I've just roughly shaped them, like that's pretty well how they're going to be. Obviously I'm going to give these a bit more shape when I come around to finishing them, but that's pretty raw. Just welded them up and put them on there. I've got the exhaust off, so I was thinking with that, there's no point doing a mount and then welding the exhaust because all these bends are probably going to move. So I'm going to weld the exhaust first, then I'm going to put it on, then I'm going to make a mount. So I'm going to go through and time lapse that now. Alright, so I got pretty well majority of the exhaust welded up here. On this front pipe, I just welded the first maybe 6 joints and left these 2 main ones alone so that if this moved, I could just break these and move them to make them right. So they turned out pretty good actually. I've just got this clamp on here. This is my desired gap. So I've just got that in between, clamp on it. And you can see that they still line up damn nicely. So I'm going to take this front pipe back off, finish those last 2 welds. Alright, so I have my exhaust pretty well all sorted here. I have it clamped up. This is exactly the spot that I want it in. So I want to do a mount here, right? But I only want it to do with 1 bolt. So I want both exhaust and the plate off the stay to be 1 bolt. I don't have to have a heap of bolts. So the way I'm going to do that, I've got my little thing that I drew here. So this is the distance apart the pipes are, right? This is the thickness of the material that I want to use, well, how wide it is. And I want to radius each edge so I have more to weld to. If it's just a straight butt onto the stainless, it'll probably break. So if I have all the surface area to weld, it'll be stronger. So what I come up with is this little guy. So he will sit there like that, that'll weld to the pipe. And then on the other pipe, this will sit there. Sit like that, so that'll weld to that pipe, that'll weld to the other pipe, and then it'll be 1 bolt through the center. And this bolt will also pick up the stay on the rear guard here. So that is just like that. That'll go weld onto there like that, and then I'll have a stay straight off this onto that rear guard mount. So I'm going to go ahead, weld these on, and then we'll come back when this is all done and welded. Alright, so that is the exhaust pretty well finished now. I'll show you the mounts that I put on the back. I had to take the rear wheel off because it was tricky to get in here and tack it. But that is the mount. As you can see, what I meant, I sculpted out because you can see how much more weld I get on it. If it was just this straight piece, you'd only have a tiny little section of weld and it'd just break out the thin sidewall of the pipe. So the more contact you have, the more weld, the stronger it's going to be. So as you can see, it's just one bolt goes through the whole lot, and then this little tab on the back side is what holds it onto the stay. So that is super solid, super happy with how that came out. So all just roughly polished here. I've just polished all the welds out. I need to come through and give that a final finish, and then that is pretty well it for this bike, I reckon. Alright, that is just about it for this episode. If you haven't already, in the description below, I'll have my Instagram and everything in there. Jump on there, give me a follow. I post a lot more about the little bits and pieces I do on these bikes and projects that I'm onto. So jump over there, give me a follow. On the next episode, I will obviously be doing all the wiring on this. I'm going to show you how to wire up a Maggie. So I'm going to have a no battery system. I'm going to do the wiring, I'll do all the oil lines for the oil bag, and basically just button this thing up so that it's ready to ride. I'm going to run it. Obviously the carbie's never been run, so I'm going to tune that. I'm going to tune the Maggie. I'm going to do all that sort of stuff, get this thing ready to go, and then we're going to take this thing for a ride. I might even have a special guest coming on to test ride this thing for me. So stay tuned, see who that's going to be, and wait for the next episode. Thanks guys.